I heard a thump and my whole body jolted, causing my back hit against something smooth and hard. I slowly opened my eyes to take in my surroundings. I was laying down across the back seats of a car, my head resting on the side behind the front passenger seat. My hands were tied in front of me with ropes tied around my wrist. I tried the ropes by wiggling my hands, however they were tightly tied and had little give in them. I tried to move my legs, but my ankles too were tied with rope. I attempted to sit up, however the momentum of the car hindered me, unable to collect my balance. I managed to twist my body onto my side so I could lean on my elbow and prop myself up to get a look out of the window. The vast darkness of night flew past the window at great speed as we cruised along a motorway. I glanced upwards to try and read the road signs as they flew past, but due to the speed we were traveling at and the lack of light, I couldn't read anything. Since I couldn't see anything out of the window, I turned my attention to the driver, who, seeing as we're the only people in the car, I assume is also my kidnapper. Kidnapper. This is really happening. I'm really being taken from my home, my friends and my family. I arched my neck forwards to get a better view of the monster sat in the front seat. He looked like he was in his late teens or his early 20s. He had effortlessly messy brown hair, sun-kissed bronze skin and a muscular-looking body. He wore jeans and a t-shirt which showed off his impressive biceps nicely. What? No, I can't think like that. I can't think about how smooth his skin looks or how soft and fluffy his hair is or how I can see his arm muscles ripple as he grips the steering wheel. No, no, no. This man is the vile creature who ripped me from my home and callously tore away my freedom. I scoffed and rolled over so my back was towards him. Oh, so you are awake then? He commented, taking me by surprise. Before I could answer, he braked and stopped the car. The sudden movement caused me to roll off of the seat and become wedged in the footwell of the back seats. I groaned in pain and my back was jabbed by a plastic mound beneath me. He chuckled softly before getting out of the car and slamming his door shut. Next thing, he wrenched open the back seat door on the driver's side and leaned in to look at me. Need a hand? He asked, smirking at me. I simply rolled my eyes and scoffed again. He brought his large hands to my waist and lifted me up on the seats with ease. In my newfound seating position, I could really appreciate the size of the car we were in. It must have been a truck of some sort. I looked around us and out of the window. We had pulled up in a small petrol station with only 4 pumps. We were the only vehicle in the area. You know, love, it's sometimes considered good manners to say thank you. He said arrogantly after helping me sit upright and lean against the seat I was in. And what exactly would I be thanking you for? Kidnapping me, taking me away from my family, tying me up in the back of your car. I bit out spitefully. His jaw tightened before he leaned towards me more. I cowered slightly as he neared me, and upon seeing my reaction to him, he smiled cold-heartedly. I'm going in to get some coffee and something to eat. You want anything? He asked, leaning backwards. No, I replied flatly. He rolled his eyes at me before climbing back out of the car. He was just walking off when he turned around and popped his head back into the car. Just don't try anything, okay? He said forcefully. Without waiting for a response, he stepped back and shut the door. The lock clicked soundly and I heard his footsteps lead away. I sighed noisily and leant the side of my head against the window. What do I do now? Just as I thought this, a small blue Ford Fiesta pulled up the petrol pump next to us. Loud bass music rang from the car and I felt the thumps vibrate my chest at the proximity of the noise. I looked back over to see my kidnapper in the shop with his back turned to me, looking at something. I spun back around and knocked on the window of the car where my head lay. There were 3 boys in the car next to me who looked to be in their late teens. The music had been switched off now and one of them got out to fill up the car. The other 2 boys were talking animatedly between the front and back seats. I continued my knocking on the window until one of the boys from in the car looked up. He saw me and grinned. The other followed his gaze and when he saw me shot me a wink. I shook my head desperately and held up my hands so they could the ropes around my wrists. At the sight of my bound hands, their faces dropped. They both sprang from the car and ran over to me. One of them tried the door but it was not used. The car had been locked. I shook my head and held a hand up to my ear, trying to mimic making a phone call. The boys understood what I said. One of them got out his phone as the other ran over to his friend who was now replacing the nozzle on the petrol pump. I sighed in relief at the thought of getting out of this situation. However, before the boy could even lift his phone to his ear, I screamed in shock as I saw the angry eyes of my captor fly past the car and tackle my savoir from the side, sending them both flying to the ground. I watched in horror as my kidnapper repeatedly punched the poor boy in the face numerous times. The two other boys came running over to his aid. The taller of the two boys grabbed my kidnapper by the collar and wrenched him to the side. With my kidnapper now on the ground, the other third boy landed in 3 solid kicks to his side whilst the taller boy went to the aid of his friend. The tables turned quickly, and before I knew what had happened, my kidnap pulled a pocket knife from his jeans and thrust it deep into the stomach of his attacker. Almost instantly the boy dropped to the floor. The other 2 boys scrambled backwards in fear as they saw the man who attacked their friend make a lunge towards them. A swift kick in the face of the already injured boy rendered him unconscious. One flick of the knife and the final boy dropped to the ground, blood pooling from a cut to his neck. My kidnapper stepped back and looked over to me. Our eyes locked and I felt my stomach drop. He wiped his knife on his t-shirt before flipping it away into his pocket. He stalked over to the car, unlocked the door and jumped into the driver's seat. I barely had time to brace myself before we were once again speeding off along the road. I saw his arms were tense and he gripped the steering wheel angrily. His jaw was tight and clenched. Seeing him this angry made me shiver in dread. "So," he began, his voice sounded vicious. "Was I not clear when I said don't try anything?" I began hesitantly. "Don't interrupt me," he barked. I swallowed before sinking back into my seat. "I think we need to go over a few rules, don't we, princess?" I winced at the name. I was not his princess. And these are non-negotiable. Number 1. You're mine, sweetheart. All mine. Number 2. You will respect me. That means you don't interrupt me when I talk. You look at me when I talk to you. You do not ignore me and you respond when you are addressed. It would do you good to remember that," he growled. He paused before continuing and cracked his knuckles loudly. "And finally, number 3. This is more for your benefit, darling. You don't hit me, because trust me, darling, I will hit you back twice as hard," he said smugly. "Are we clear?" I didn't answer. My head was spinning and I felt nauseous. This man takes me away from my home and then has the audacity to dictate my actions with his controlling rules. "Are we clear?" he asked venomously. "Yes," I replied in barely more than a whisper. I turned my head to look out the window as my eyes stung from the tears forming. One by one the little droplets fell down my face and I slowly began to break.